What's up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Phillies Sports History for October 2nd, 2023. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. It is a Victory Monday. More on that in a minute. First, be sure to check out the latest Back to the Future, my other podcast, Back to the Future with a PH. We take a look at Scott Rowland and his induction into Phillies Wall of Fame, as well as the Wall of Fame process and just the recent members that have been inducted. So check that out wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. Also, don't forget to check out my boys over at the Clashing Conferences podcast. They just have an around the horn style take on the NFC East. This week's episode should be good considering yesterday's game for the Eagles. Speaking of that game, let's get into it. And listen, I know it wasn't pretty, but there definitely is some positives to take out of there. I think 34-31 in overtime. The defense gave up way too many points to that Washington team. However, I think offensively with their players, they're not a bad team. I mean, and Sam Howell obviously is a rookie quarterback, but I think take with that what you will. They have some good skill players. It's just their line is so bad. And the fact that our defense gave up 31 points. They did have 5 sacks, but to me, it's too many points. Offensively, I think the Eagles are fine. It's exactly what I thought was going to happen. I thought we were going to see the Jalen Hurts coming out party. He looked better than he has all season. I still got to question some of the play calling sometimes, and again, that's not on Jalen, but some of the play calling is a little shaky, but I think they're working through that. It's not nearly as bad as it was against the Patriots. The defense, for what it's worth, did come up big in overtime when they needed to, although the game should not have gone into overtime because the defense didn't do what they needed to do. But there were some positives. I mean, Jalen Carter is just a beast. Like, there's just no other way to put it. The man is a beast. Nicholas Morrow and Zach Cunningham also, I feel like Morrow had 3 sacks on his own and was all over the field. Seems like every time there was a tackle, it was either Morrow or Cunningham, which is good. And I know the secondary, it's a little banged up, but Terry McLaurin's not a bad receiver either. So it wasn't pretty. There's still a lot of room for improvement, but as we were saying on the subway on the way home, 4-0 is 4-0. And I'd rather be 4-0 knowing that the best is yet to come and knowing what things we need to work on than being 2-2 right now and saying, man, if we could have gotten this or could have gotten that. So I think, yes, it's okay to be concerned that there are some still big areas of need and things to work on. But I think keeping it in perspective, being that we're 4-0 and we still have not played our best football and we know what we need to work on. Sirianni said just that. He knows what needs to be done. So I trust that he's going to get it done. But listen, 4-0 is 4-0. There's not too many 4-0 teams right now. So let's breathe a little bit and put it sort of in perspective and try to be new Philly here and realize that the best is to come. They will get better. And there definitely were some positives to take away from that. And I mean, and ultimately too, and not that this had any outcome on the game, the refs were a little, I mean, and I feel like it's been consistent across the NFL, not just for or against the Eagles. Just, I'm seeing a lot of bad calls, just blown calls, and blatant too. But 4-0, we will take it. We won our bet as the game flew over. But we will take that for what it's worth. And again, the defense, though, you can't have that game should not have gone into overtime. I mean, I'm sorry. You can't give up a 3rd and 17 with like a minute left. But again, know what we need to work on, and they did step up when they needed to. I will give them credit for that. In overtime, they stepped up, and I mean the crowd was just phenomenal. Nobody really left. Everybody was fired up. So overall, good win. We take it. We rest today, and we move on to next week. Phillies did get to 90 wins yesterday. Good to see that. 9-1 over those Mutts. I don't know. There's just something about winning 90 games that just makes the season feel more successful than what it was. We do know they will play the Marlins Tuesday night at 8. It'll be Jesus Luzardo against Zach Wheeler. I will get more into the breakdown of this series tomorrow. The Marlins did win the regular season series against the Phillies, 7-6, so it was close. Phillies scored a lot of runs against them, so I'll give picks and everything like that for tomorrow. But finally, we know it's the Marlins, and I gotta say, and I know it's a familiar team, and the Marlins could very easily come in here and do what the Phillies did to the Cardinals last year. But I just feel more comfortable playing the Marlins than I did Arizona. It's just Arizona, like the year that the Phillies won the World, or before they won the World Series in 2007 when they played the Rockies. It's just one of those teams that just kind of scares me. So I'm glad it's the Marlins. I mean, it's the playoffs, so you got to take who's there, but more on that series tomorrow. But congrats on the Phils for getting to 90 wins. Well, now on to some bad news. Sixers just keep getting worse. Boston and Milwaukee both got better. The Sixers, not so much. Jrue Holliday went to Boston, and the Sixers are stuck right now with James Harden. So who knows what's going to happen with that? Who knows? But I do know training camp is in about a week, so something's going to happen. And I mean, maybe you have a pissed off James Harden come in and play, like turn back the clock and play best. And yes, as I'm saying that, I'm looking at myself and I'm like, this is just wishful thinking. But who knows? Maybe it could happen. You never know. I have a podcast called Back to the Future. Maybe James Harden goes back to the future and recaptures the fountain of youth. I think the more likely scenarios, he comes in and pouts. But hey, we can hope, can't we? And then Joel Embiid, in typical Joel fashion, tweeted out after the Jrue Holiday trade, basically, this offseason was fun, LMAO. So at least he gets it. Whether or not he's pissed at the front office, he's pissed at Harden, whether he comes out and just puts his team on his back, who knows. But always fun times in Sixers land. I feel like they are the Eagles back at the end of the Andy Reid era, Chip Kelly era, where it's just, you name it, and it was going wrong. But you know what's not wrong? PhillyGoat.com. Go. There's 2 Kelly Green games coming up for the Eagles. Go get your Kelly Green Eagles tees. Got so many compliments on the fly shirt yesterday, just walking around tailgating and inside the game. I saw some people with some of the old school Philly Goat stuff. So all you got to do is keep scrolling down, and they have a ton of stuff. You got the Flyers opening up soon, Sixers training camp, the Union playoff push. They got your needs covered for all of that. Even babies. If you got to go to a baby shower, go to Philly Goat and buy a baby onesie. They have them. Buy a hat, hoodies. Everything you need, one-stop shop, stickers for your kids' water bottles. I know my kids are very big into the stickers on them, so I might get them a couple fly stickers in the next order I make from Philly Goat. But go to phillygoat.com, use the promo code Jim Montgomery for 10% off of your order. That's phillygoat.com, 10% using the promo code Jim Montgomery. Make sure it has the goat on the sleeve. I had some people say, well, how do I know? I'm like, well, look, here's the goat on the sleeve. So go to Philly Goat, Jim Montgomery for 10% off of your order. All right, today we're going to go back to 1943. And on this day, October 2nd, 1943, the Philly-Pitt combined team, a.k.a. the Steagles, played for the first time. And they beat the Brooklyn Dodgers 17-0. Due to World War II and players leaving for the draft, and even like the NFL draft, like they drafted players, but those guys were either on their way or already there in World War II. The Eagles and Steelers didn't have enough players really to field a team. Truthfully, it was the Steelers did not have the players to field a team. I think they had like 6 players. The Eagles had 16. So Art Rooney, knowing that the league needed at least 8 teams in order to be viable financially, went to Eagles owner Alexis Thompson, who ironically enough was serving as a corporal in World War II at the time, and said, hey, let's combine the 2 Pennsylvania teams. Well, Thompson was like, no, like I I have enough players on my team. And then he kind of thought back and was persuaded, because then, if we remember, we talked about this a while back, but the Eagles and Steelers actually technically flipped franchises at one point when Thompson bought the Eagles so he could be closer to his offices in New York. So then he said, okay, we'll do it. And again, it was 1 year thing. The Steagles went 5-4-1. Ironically enough, it was the Eagles' first ever winning season. Only the second ever for the Steelers. They were just shitty franchises for the first few years of their existence. After 1943, the Eagles went back to being the Eagles. The Steelers then merged one more year with the Chicago Cardinals. But the Eagles, like I said, became the Eagles the next year. They were 4 years away from winning or being in the first NFL championship of their franchise history. Further complicating matters was the fact that Greasy Neal and Pittsburgh coach Walt Kiesling, neither one of them wanted to necessarily give up control and lose the title of head coach. So they were co-head coaches, but they also hated each other to the point where they were fight on the field before games. And at one point, Kiesling was late getting to training camp, so Neal was like, screw it, started putting in his offense, which pissed off Kiesling even more. So ultimately, Neal was he was like the offensive coordinator. Kiesling was the defensive coordinator, and then they kind of tried to agree when it came to the head coaching duties. Now, in his defense, or I guess in Greasy Neal's defense, I guess, the Pittsburgh players also hated Walt Kiesling, so it was kind of like a welcome breath of fresh air to have Greasy Neal making some of those decisions. But another fun fact from that game against the Brooklyn Dodgers, it was the defense held the Dodgers to minus 33 yards rushing, which, depending on where you look, I couldn't get a clear answer on this. It's either the second or third least amount of rushing yards still to date. At the time, it was the record, but at least one team has passed it, differing and contradicting things. So again, I always like to make sure everything is factual. Could not find, but it's one of the top 3 defensive rushing efforts ever. But on this day, back in 1943, the Steagles played their first game, shutting out the Brooklyn Dodgers 17-0. They would go on to be 5-4-1, which was the Eagles' first winning season ever. 4 years later, they would be playing for the NFL championship and then win it back-to-back years in 48 and 49. Okay, time to if I can talk, time to do our Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame focus of the day. Today we're going to do another inductee, and that is none other than Bernard Hopkins, boxing legend. Everybody knows his story. He went to jail for armed robbery as a youngster, ended up being paroled, took up boxing, and really just lived an awesome life. Took the experience in jail and allowed good things to happen because of it, and it's kind of one of those stories that you love to hear. But Bernard Hopkins obviously is a Philly native, had an amateur record of 95-4. So think about that. That's quite impressive. His professional record, 55-8-2 with 32 KOs. And then this is just like a who's of like put him up there with the greatest. He was the undisputed middleweight title holder. He was the lineal light heavyweight title holder. Held multiple titles in 2 separate weight classes. He was the first boxer to unify titles in all 4 major bodying sanctions when he was the middleweight champ. He successfully defended his middleweight title 19 times. I was there for one of them up in Reading. Just one of my favorite sports to watch live is boxing. If you haven't ever seen boxing live, I highly suggest you go do it. He's the oldest oldest boxer to ever win a title at 49. He was Ring Magazine Fighter of the Year in 2001. He was the Hall of Fame Fighter of the Year that same year. He's in the Atlantic City Boxing Hall of Fame, the International Boxing Hall of Fame, the Pennsylvania Boxing Hall of Fame. And he just is, like I said, he's a nice guy, huge Philly guy, and really just one of the best to ever lace up the gloves. And again, if you've never seen boxing live, I highly suggest it. So shout out to Bernard Hopkins and congratulations on being one of the inductees for the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame's class of 2023, the 20th induction class. If you want more information about the Hall of Fame, go to phillyhall.org. If you want more information about this year's class as well as ticket information, it's Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame.org. Ticket information, be sure to volunteer. They're looking for, you name it, I did an interview with Ken Avalon. If you haven't listened, go back on Back to the Future. They're looking for all kinds of stuff, whether it's researchers, guys, people to help design their displays and things. Really great organization. So be sure to check them out. See how you can help. Find out more information about the 2023 induction class, and we will have more on the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame tomorrow as we go through and try to just really celebrate the 20th induction class of the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame, as well as just the history of Philly sports, because it's such a deep, rich history. And obviously you're listening to this, so you love the history of Philly sports too. On this day, back in 1943, the Steagles beat the Brooklyn Dodgers 17-0, holding them to minus 33 rushing yards. Sixers missed out on Jrue Holliday. It's been a fun offseason, according to Joe. Phils take on the Marlins tomorrow. We'll have more on that. Eagles win. Ugly wins count. This is obviously not nearly as ugly as the other ones, so we're getting there. We're kind of going through the makeover. We'll be there. Everybody relax. 4-0 is still good as you're trying to figure things out. Then you know what you need to figure out. So we'll be okay. Go to Philly Goat. Maybe if that'll ease some of your nerves, go to Philly Goat, buy yourself a t-shirt or a hoodie. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery, 10% off. Do a little retail therapy, if you will. Be sure to check out those links in the description for the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame. Shout out to B Hop for being one of this year's inductee class. It's supposed to be a beautiful day here too. Go out, enjoy the weather. I got to mow the grass from all the rain. It should be fun, but at least it'll be 80 degrees in the beginning of October, so we'll take it. But this has been This Day in Philly Sports History. I'm Jim Montgomery. Go have yourselves a Monday, and until next time, I'll see you when I see you.